Friends, a month has passed. Iran has shown enough resilience, and now it's becoming more and more vigorous in battle. Chinese netizens feel like, who could have thought of this? So they must give a thumbs up to Iran. Now Iran has found that it has adapted to the rhythm of war, and seeing Trump's ugly appearance, Iran is becoming more and more vigorous in battle. On April 1st, Iran launched the 89th wave of the Real Commitment 4 operation. According to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, Iranian armed forces cooperated with the resistance front on that day to strike American and Israeli targets in the region. This was Iran's largest strike since the outbreak of the war. The so-called resistance front refers to Lebanon's Hezbollah, the Red Barbarian Armed Forces, and Iraqi anti-American forces, meaning the fire of war is spreading more and more, and it has now extended into a large-scale regional war. According to the Revolutionary Guard, in the April 1st attack, the Iranian camp used over 100 heavy missiles, attack drones, and 200 rockets, covering Israel's entire territory from north to south. Multiple Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv, Eilat, and Bnei Brak, were attacked, and Iran claimed that the attacks caused significant casualties on the other side. According to CNN reports, there were continuous explosions in Tel Aviv, with at least 4 rounds of air raid alarms. It's unclear what the significant casualties claimed by Iran specifically amount to. According to Israeli statistics, since the war started, 19 Israeli civilians have died, not including those indirectly killed in night raids. In addition, 10 Israeli soldiers have died in Lebanon. The greater cost is certainly that thousands of people have died in both Iran and Lebanon. However, Israel cannot retreat unscathed either, with over 5,000 casualties reported according to official reports. War is the most cruel form of fairness. In the war zone, no one is just a spectator. Everyone is in danger. Iran's attacks are not limited to Israel. According to the Revolutionary Guard's report, a location in Bahrain, a Gulf country where 80 American military personnel are stationed, was precisely hit by Iranian missiles. Additionally, a helicopter formation at a U.S. base in Kuwait was attacked by Iranian missiles. One helicopter was destroyed, and several were damaged. Reports indicate that Iran inflicted relatively large casualties on American forces. Of course, the U.S. military has not admitted this. Whether it's an exaggeration or denial, it is clearly a type of cognitive warfare. Since it is cognitive warfare, the truth is often the first casualty. This is still the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Iran has 2 armies, including a regular armed force. On April 1st, the Iranian military issued announcement number 51, declaring that the military had used the Arash-2 drone with a range of 2,000 kilometers to strike U.S. early warning aircraft and refueling aircraft stationed at Israel's Ben Gurion airport, as well as U.S. radar and electronic stations deployed in the UAE. The announcement claims that intelligence and satellite monitoring images show that the targeted locations have been severely damaged, and Iran severely crippled the enemy's military aircraft operational support capability, as well as the ability to intercept missiles and drones. The U.S. and Israel have claimed to have destroyed most of Iran's missiles and drones, but Iran launched the largest offensive since the war began. Isn't this really an April Fool's joke? The problem is, the war has now turned into a disproportionately costly farce. Do you know? The U.S. is now finding it increasingly unfeasible to continue fighting this war. In recent U.S.-Iran conflicts, the U.S. is using single missiles costing over $1 million to shoot down enemy missiles produced by Iran. This forces the U.S. military to admit that Iranian drones pose a major challenge. The U.S. military is also beginning to seek new solutions. The prolonged Iranian conflict has exposed the depths of the U.S. military's ammunition crisis. Particularly the stockpile and production capacity of advanced munitions like precision-guided weapons, air defense interceptors, and long-range cruise missiles. This high-intensity depletion war, dominated by low-cost drones and missiles, makes it difficult for the U.S. military's original quick-win designed ammunition reserve structure to meet real-world needs. The U.S. military's high-end defensive munitions are experiencing significant shortages. Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump is urging Arab countries to cover the costs of U.S. military actions against Iran. In the U.S., of course, in Trump's rhetoric, America definitely won, and it has to be a decisive victory. He even hinted that Iran's new regime's president is far less radical than their predecessors and wiser, saying that when requested by Japan and China for a ceasefire, we would consider it once we are unimpeded in the Strait of Hormuz. Until then, we will bomb Iran to smithereens, or as they put it, send them back to the Stone Age. There are even 3 exclamation marks. Very Trump style, but the whole world is a bit confused. So who is Iran's new president? Before the war, the Iranian president was Hassan Rouhani, and after the war, it's still Hassan Rouhani. The Iranian presidency hasn't changed, although it can't be ruled out that Iran came up with someone new under Trump's arrangement. Nor can it be ruled out that it's deliberate provocation, as the Iranian president is considered moderate, and the latest statements indeed indicate that Iran can end the war. But the condition is that Iran's demands are met, especially securing guarantees against further aggression. Trump only saw the first part of Iran's statement and quickly amplified it. You see, isn't this Iran asking for peace? It must be said that if Trump's reading comprehension was tested in China's college entrance exam, he'd probably score 0. However, the Iranian president had to clarify. On April 1st, the Iranian president issued an open letter to the American people, summarizing as follows. 1. The Iranian people bear no hostility towards other countries, including those in the Americas, Europe, or neighboring nations. 2. The U.S. launched aggression against Iran, and Iran's actions are self-defense. Iran did not start the war or aggression. 3. Various actions by the U.S., especially launching aggression during 2 negotiations, have led to deep mistrust among the Iranian people towards the U.S. 4. The U.S. sanctions and war aggression have caused severe harm to Iran beyond repair. 5. The Iranian president said this raises a fundamental question. What interests of the American people does this war truly serve? Is there any objective threat from Iran or justification for these actions? Killing innocent children, destroying cancer treatment pharmaceutical facilities, or boasting of bombing a country back to the Stone Age doesn't serve any purpose other than further damaging America's international reputation. 6. Attacking Iran's critical infrastructure is a war crime, directly targeting the Iranian people, with consequences extending beyond Iran's borders. 7. The U.S. has become Israel's agent, with America first essentially shelved. 8. Urging the American people to see through the fog of misinformation and see the real Iran. 9. Warning that continuing down the path of confrontation will be more costly than ever. 10. The open letter concludes that in Iran's thousands of years of glorious history, it has overcome countless invaders, whose names now remain only as blemished marks in history, while Iran stands unyielding, resilient, dignified, and proud. Frankly speaking, after all, the Iranian president is a doctor, much more calm and rational compared to the repetitive statements of the American president, demonstrating Iran's unwavering determination to fight to the end. On the same day, Iranian Foreign Minister Akraji spoke more bluntly during an interview with the media on April 1st. He said there are currently no negotiations between Iran and the U.S. Exchanging messages through a third party is not negotiation, and trust between the two sides is 0. We also do not believe negotiations will have results. As for a possible U.S. ground invasion, he said, I think they don't dare. Waiting for them will be a heavy death toll. You've seen their losses. What happened to their early warning aircraft? In terms of ground warfare, we are even superior to that. Of course, what's more interesting is Iran's parliament speaker, Kalibaf. After Trump hinted at the end of the war, investors all breathed a sigh of relief. Global stock markets soared, and Kalibaf promptly reminded that taking things out of context, plus the fear of being left behind by the times, equates to profiting from the first lesson of war. Be sure to do your own research. What does it mean? Trump is fooling you? Don't let him shear you like leeks again. Make sure to do your research. Not even one punctuation mark of Trump's words can be trusted. Some netizens lament that Iran's parliamentary speaker now outpredicts the American capital market better than most of Wall Street's insiders. A Chinese official commentary says this war is a muddled war. Muddled from the start, continuing muddled, not ruling out a muddled end. What is the goal of the war? Trump's statements change every day. He's not predictable either. At first, he said to punish Iran, suppress the opposition, then focused on Iran's nuclear program. At one point, he wanted to claim regime change in Iran, and recently seemed satisfied with opening the Strait of Hormuz. At one point, he wanted to claim the overthrow of the Iranian regime, but recently seemed satisfied with opening up the Strait of Hormuz. Don't tell me Trump has a strategy or tactics. Maybe he does. More like slipping on a banana peel. Wherever it leads is where it goes. Once he can't slide anymore, he'll quickly end it. After all, in Trump's words, America definitely won, and won big. History repeatedly proves that when the strong start fabricating their victories, the real turning point quietly arrives elsewhere. The Middle East has completely changed in landscape. On the first day of the war, the US and Israel killed Iran's supreme leader. Iran's top echelon almost wiped out. The whole world was shocked. The US and Israel really went for it. Who knew one mighty operation later? A month later, it turns out to be all for naught. The US imagined 1,000 ways to win, yet never anticipated Iran would indeed block the Strait of Hormuz. With the strait blocked, the US was stunned, the whole world suffered, yet Iran grasped a trump card. The most dangerous illusion of power is that the opponent's choices always align with one's script. In the coming Middle East, even if the US leaves, Israel remains, Iran's hatred isn't going away, and it's not over. What will Trump do this time? Perhaps Trump, if unable to hit Iran, will turn to save face by hitting Cuba in his own backyard. Entirely possible. Subscribe, and we'll chat next time. Subscribe, and we'll talk again next time.